Sleeves here with the Senior Pickleball Report. This week we're starting a new series called People in Pickleball, where we talk to influencers in our sport. So we're starting with Rick Witsken. He's sponsored by PaddleTech and Airfeet. He is a pro at the senior level, and he has won with 7 different partners over the last year. And he's been quite hot this year at the beginning of the year, winning, I believe, at least 3 times so far. He's been on the podium multiple times. Rick runs a tennis and pickleball facility in Indiana, and he talks to us about a variety of things, including rules, playing as a senior, and plenty of other things. So check it out. If there's other people you'd like us to talk to who you consider to be influencers in the sport, please put it in the comments, and we'll see if we can hook those people up with us. So enjoy the interview with Rick. Welcome to the Senior Pickleball Report, Rick Witsken. Yeah, hey, it's good to have you, man. We have to talk right away about your season and your start of your season. How many times have you been on the podium already?
Well, I know I've won the last 3 doubles tournaments. I know Beth Bellamy, her and I have had great success in the last several months in mixed doubles. And my singles is kind of a little bit, depending on how I do in the doubles and the mixed, am I going to play the full tournament? Do I play it all? Just kind of body preservation is part of the equation too.
Right. Does it help you to have singles first? Or it doesn't matter because ultimately you're going to have to choose whether you're going to do all 3?
Luckily with the APP, I enter all 3. I wait to see how my body feels. To answer your question, obviously singles going first can help me in singles better, but I probably prefer to play singles last. Seeing that doubles and mixed doubles, I'm trying to play my best for a partner. I don't want to let them down. And I feel like kind of on the last day, it's kind of me deciding how much of a grind I've already been through. Let's face it, a lot of nights and days are 12, 14-hour days, especially with rain delays, Boca, word, those are really long days. So, it's not just the physical grind, it's the mental grind. And I probably would say I prefer the singles like APP has it on the last day a little more than the first day.
Yeah, because the first day, if you're running around all day by yourself, covering the entire court, and then like you said earlier, you might let down a partner because, hey, maybe you tweaked something, maybe your legs aren't as fresh, and so on and so forth. Let's talk about the APP and the PPA a little bit. There's this kind of healthy competition going on for the pro game, and I talk a little bit on my show about maybe seniors kind of getting the short end sometimes because the focus right now is getting the sport promoted, getting it on television, getting the venues, and getting the top players. And sometimes maybe the seniors, and in particular amateur seniors and senior pros, maybe get pushed to the side a little bit. So maybe talk about, you've played both, you're involved a little bit with the APP, I understand. So talk about where you see this going, particularly from a senior pro standpoint.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious, really. Had an open arms mentality with the senior pros and value our level of performance. And I think they've got something brewing with the super seniors as well. So I just know that my territory now of entering tournaments and getting partners is mostly in the scope of an APP tournament. I don't blame PPA for their business model. And certainly, the APP has a business model, and I get fans all the time that I don't know or never seen before coming up to me. Oh, love your energy, love your live stream. Oh, I could tell XYZ. It's really neat that I feel that at 50 years old, I'm 51 now, but I think the senior pros have a lot of respect out there from people their age, because aren't most pickleball players our age?
Right.
I think so.
Yeah, where I play, I'm the young guy apparently. So it isn't. You do host a tournament as well for the APP. Is that correct?
Correct. The Indy Open in June. I'm really excited. My wife and I host that, and so we really like to focus on the amateurs as well as the senior pros. And I literally just had a conversation yesterday with the Super Senior Council. I don't know if you know Yoda Friedenberg and Chris Powers, but we were really trying to do some really neat intertwining of those tours, senior pro, super seniors, and then also the amateur. So really excited that we brought that last year to Zionsville, Indiana. This year it'll be in Mount Vernon, Indiana.
Okay.
And the Midwest really appreciates an event like this.
Absolutely. So we're kind of working back to, the origin story of you in pickleball. And you played pro tennis, and your brother made quite an impact in pro tennis, and I see your shirt. So can you talk a little bit about, your start in pickleball and your background and what your shirt represents?
9 years ago, I got involved in pickleball. I started, oddly enough, into the singles. I really enjoyed the singles because it was very similar to me in tennis. But at 42 years old, playing tennis on a singles court didn't seem like much fun. And I really liked the singles format. I was introduced by a buddy here and a coworker, John Kristen, in the singles capacity. So started playing some pro tournaments. Played, 5, 6 U.S. Opens. I certainly played the Kyle Yateses and Tyson McGuffins and those. I was certainly really happy that pro seniors became upon the horizon at age 48, 49. I thought, boy, it'd be really nice to play people that aren't their daughter's ages. But, it's been the combination of teaching tennis and pickleball has been a beautiful thing for me. I never guessed pickleball would take more of my time in coaching than, but it's there now. And I took a lot, like a lot of other tennis players that really embraced the game right in the beginning. But I'm really glad that I endorsed the sport. Certainly the growth, popularity, and seeing it on ESPN makes me seem like I was the wizard with the incredible vision.
Hey.
That's given this sport wings, and let's all fly. Flying like an eagle. My brother died in 1998 of a brain tumor. His last trip, we went to Yellowstone Park and out to the Northwest, and there was literally a bald eagle, whether we were doing whitewater rafting or horseback riding or fly fishing. Eagle was following us. So the eagle on my shirt, that's where Ripskin kind of comes from, that logo. And then the name Ripskin, my wife came up with. So she kind of said, you hit the ball like you're Ripskin, not Witsken. So
yeah, right on. It's a great story too. I mean,
I don't wish where it gives my grunts on the court too. That'd be kind of cool.
That's right. And you are a grunter. I've listened to some of your matches.
I honestly do it probably just more to like exhale and relieve pressure and tension. I don't do it to distract. I have a lot of people I'm entertaining to watch. I'm sure there's people that find me annoying, but I still love them. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I noticed you because, you do something that I'm attempting to do in my own game, and I've only been playing, like 6 months, and that is playing a little bit with both hands. And so could you talk about that and what is that, done for your game, and particularly in coming up in the senior ranks where some of these guys haven't seen you before?
What's interesting, Mike, is I gave a lesson this morning, and the gentleman is left-handed and I'm right-handed, and we did a total non-dominant hour of a lesson where I'm playing left-handed and he's playing right-handed. So with our non-dominant arms, I think it's a really wise thing for both ambidextrous and non-ambidextrous people to get used to using their non-dominant hand. So when they're stretched out wide, when they're off balance, as long as they keep the paddle out of them, I think they can get good at it. And I'm glad you do it, because I don't do it to be cool. I don't try and put on a show. It's just, to me, so wise when I'm in the kitchen and they're moving me all around to do that. And then obviously in singles is where I use my left hand the most. I mean, when you got guys like Paul Olin hitting passing shots on a dime, if I can't get my hand, I'm not getting there with a backhand. So I strongly encourage all of our listeners to consider the use of both hands in tough situations.
Yeah, and I use it mainly for a backhand that I can't quite get there fast enough. I just can switch the hand, and it just happened one day, and I was like, oh. And then I started hitting against the wall with it and blocking with it. And then I'm like, well, depending on what side of the court I was playing doubles on, I would switch hands. To have my hand on the inside, in the middle, and protect the middle a little more. So for me, it just sort of just happened. I didn't really do it with any other sport, not even tennis all that much, because the racket was bigger. And so did you do it with tennis? Was it something you'd had in tennis as well?
No way. The trampoline of strings and the heaviness of a racket, no chance. I mean, I can hit forehand, but I've never. But the lightweight paddle and a ball that has holes, it's so much more navigable in pickleball. So again, I strongly encourage coaches to coach it, and I definitely encourage players to experiment with it.
Yeah. Speaking of coaching, you coach middle school team?
Yeah, I'm so excited. It starts next Monday, and thanks to Paddle Tech, we got some free paddles we're giving out to the kids, and we had 17 boys at a call-out meeting, and I actually coached 2 middle school tennis teams. And so in their off season, I figured, okay, we'll do pickleball on their off season of tennis. So we've got a couple people from in Indianapolis that I want to start the teams with there. So it's fresh off the press, but I do feel like we're going to have some interscholastic matches between other schools. Excited to start that in a week.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, when they talk about the rise of pickleball and, in the idea of challenging something like, tennis, but tennis has the infrastructure of, institutions that have been, people are coached, there are teams, you can get scholarships and things like that. And I think that's where pickleball really starts to really need to go if they want to have, that sort of foundational presence.
Yeah, without a doubt. But the beauty, most schools have tennis courts, and how easy it is to get non-permanent lines on tennis courts to make. We actually, at my middle school, I was able to get a painter out there, and they agreed. The school allowed me to put some pickleball lines on my tennis courts. So we've got dual use tennis pickleball. And my gosh, I have 3 teenagers at home. I mean, we want them out of the house. We want them without masks. We want them
right.
around. What a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Talk about Paddle Tech a little bit. I mean, it seems to me like, I think and I'm just naming off the top of my head, Scott Moore, Dave Weinbach. I mean, are you guys all, it seems senior men pro, they do well with Paddle Tech seems to be on these guys. So talk a little bit about that and what you like about that sponsor.
Well, I'm really proud of Curtis and Nanette Smith. They clearly are showing that they're willing to invest in their players. I honestly don't know where Scott sponsorship aligns at this point in time, but I do know I did a photo shoot and a marketing campaign with Paddle Tech with the Waters mom and daughter, Yates and Catherine Parentow and Adam Stone, and those 6 of us were involved in this huge marketing campaign, which obviously Curtis was generous to put us in that situation where they were getting us not just from a photogenic perspective, but also in a teaching moments, playing moments. And I just feel like, they really are American, which there's red, white, and blue in Witsken too, because I'm a huge patriot. I love our country. And I believe that Curtis really believes in America, American made and whatnot. Yeah. So for me, I signed a 2-year contract with them, and I know they value my teaching component because I do teach camps and clinics a lot, and they want me to kind of help be a hub for something they have upon the horizon. So, they definitely appreciate Senior Pros, and I'm really appreciative of them for aligning with Senior Pros as well as their Open Pros.
Absolutely. Is it a little surreal to have this sort of, I don't know if I'd call it, I mean, you played pro tennis, so you were pretty successful, and you teach tennis, so you're pretty successful. You were already a pro, but to have this next chapter just kind of, I mean, in some regards can't come out of nowhere, and you're doing photo shoots, you're doing clinics, people are coming up to you and asking you to sign stuff. I mean, you're 51 years old. This doesn't happen in every sport. Is it pretty surreal?
I think that's a great word. The irony is, while I was number 400 in the world in tennis, I'd only been playing on the tour for 6 months. And my brother Todd asked me if I wanted a great job with him running a big tennis facility. And it was a really big struggle to make that decision. But I chose to go work with him because he was my role model idol. And, obviously I made the right choice because he only lived 2 more years after that time. So I got to be with him the last few years of life. But I said to my wife, a few weeks ago, I'm like, I knew my talent level in tennis would translate well to pickleball, but it's almost like that decision that I kind of was thinking, boy, I didn't play pro tennis and give it the full commitment. I'm reliving that 23-year-old decision. Now I'm living it out. So I can't thank pickleball enough to get these. I mean, selfishly, I wish I was 23 because I'm telling you, in pickleball, I would love that. But I'm so all these young guys that, are 23 now. And so many guys I'm seeing at the APP tournaments, which is nice because that's APP versus PPA, right? PPA is these new young guys. I mean, I was just sitting in awe watching some of these pro open matches. Like, man, these 23-year-old no names. Well, you find out their tennis background, realize they're going to be names big time real soon.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, and what's interesting is, I mean, you're a big guy. What's your size?
I'm 6'3", 226, 3.5. When I lose, I'm 6. When I win, I'm 6'4".
Yeah. And so at the open level, even, you were in your 40s, you had to be one of the bigger guys out there in taking a lot of wingspan at the net. I mean, sort of an intimidating presence. It seems like some of these guys that are up and coming, they're not real big. They're kind of wiry and fast. And I mean, to play singles at your size too, is that a challenge?
I think it's a dual. I think it's a catch-22. I'd rather have my size, even in singles, than have it. But there's guys that are in their 50s that are moving around like gazelles that are, 5 foot and 160. I'm like, boy, they're going to have the benefit over me. When it's not. So, I mean, I think the weather comes into play. I think the style, like I try to play shorter points because of that. Right. But I see guys like Brandon Nikispong, and I don't know how you say his last name, but then Stefan. I see some bigger guys, and then Travis Rettenmeyer and his partner, Ryla DeHart. Those guys are pretty big guys. So I'm seeing all sizes come into the game, and obviously guys like Declan Barr and I think we and even Jeff, pro pickleball player. I haven't seen him much lately, but I think that's a lot of reach. So it is an advantage.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what type of athleticism comes to this sport as it grows. Like when I played high school, there wasn't a soccer team when I went there. And then when soccer came in, it pulled some athletes that would normally go to the big three sports. It'll be interesting to see when this sport pulls people from other sports and some big, fast athletes, and see how it changes over the years. I mean, it's already changed a little bit from what I go back, and I've only been involved in the sport very shortly, but I go back and I watch matches from like 2016, some of the pro matches, and they don't look the same as they do now. Like it has become vastly a more aggressive game, it seems, over the last few years.
So bigger, stronger, attack sooner. I saw with the Open Pros last weekend, and they are so fit. And I think one understated advantage to really getting into the higher level of pickleball is that everybody's starting to really take care of their bodies and pay attention to what they eat. I've had a few chocolates and a donut today, so I'm watching what I eat. But
hey. That's right.
It's impressive. There's an event I'm playing, which is really cool. The East-West event at New York City APP. That's the 16 men and women. I'm super, super excited about that. But I got a question for you, Mike. What is your book on pickleball for the Olympics? Where do you think that's going to go?
I played a beach volleyball for a lot of years. So I watched, and I played at a pretty high level, not a pro level, but I played where I was playing open events and competing for money and things like that. And so I followed the game, and I watched an interview, and I don't know, I think it might've been on Ben's podcast. They had a pro volleyball player on, and they asked him the question about, because volleyball went through this 30 years ago. It kind of boomed, and then, Olympics. And he had an interesting point. He was kind of talking about the idea that, once you sort of obtain that Olympic thing, sometimes the public forgets about what you do in between the Olympics. And he said that happened a little bit with volleyball. It became about the Olympics, and then the tour events kind of in between those 4 years, it didn't quite have maybe the presence it did when they weren't an Olympic event, and when you just went to Manhattan Beach and you watched, that open for so long. So I was always pro Olympic. Like, I think, pickleball, a natural progression to eventually get there. But I don't know if it's such a good thing sometimes. It just opened my mind to, thinking, well, maybe the Olympics isn't always the best choice for everything.
That's a good point. I hope it gets there, but at the same time, I don't want to water down these tournaments. And obviously, I'm a tournament director. I know the amount of work
Yeah.
that's gone into it. Tell you, there's been quite some headaches, that all of us have to deal with as these tours, jockey for position with their alignments of tournaments on the dates. Gosh, I mean, I'll tell you personally, like some of these tournaments that were right before my tournament, they weren't listed when I first had my dates. And now, Major League Baseball is aligned with ABP, where they're doing their next weekend right on top of my tournament. I'm like, oh my gosh, the live stream. And I think things that like average players don't even think about, like it really, sure, you spend a lot of money on live stream crew. Well, if your, visibility is going to be, diminished, it's hard to spend all that money on a live stream crew when you got these, PPA tournament and an Major League. Hopefully this stuff irons itself out. We'll be ambassadors for the sport regardless, but it's been some gray hairs on mine and my wife's head, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's pressure. It's pressure, and it's, you have a responsibility not only to the people that, are helping you out, but obviously the game itself and the tour that you represent and all that, not alone, your name. Finally, I think the last thing I want to touch upon is you've been in the game, coming up on 8-9 years now, pretty steady. And, for people that have been in the sport, you hear once in a while, I hear somebody giving a lesson online, and they've been playing pickleball since the 80s. And I gotta think, this happened in beach volleyball too, and it happened in indoor volleyball. I started volleyball, and it was side out scoring, playing doubles. It was a full court, same as the indoor court. And then literally in one season, they changed the ball that they had used for years. It was no longer a leather ball, it was a synthetic ball, and it was bigger and it was rounder. They made the court smaller, and they went to rally scoring, all in one transition. And, people lost their minds. And so I watch a lot of these forum discussions and things like that. And, rally scoring has come up the last few years. And I kind of tell people, I go, it's coming. It's come to every sport, and it's coming to pickleball. And whether you want it or not, it does change things as far as your growth goes, because, obviously, this television timeouts, you can kind of determine when things are going to happen a little better. What I tell people is that when it all changed, the sport really wasn't any different for volleyball. The same people were beating the same people by the same amount. And the game was still entertaining. So I think we kind of get stuck on rules. I was just kind of thinking, like, because this sport's very fluid the last few years, all these proposals and some of these rules change constantly. So where's your head at with where the rules are going and whether you like it or not?
Yeah, that's a great question. So multiple facets of that. Number one is, a game that can happen. You get the lead courts, you get possibly a bad line call, and that's, the second bracket. So I would be not in favor of going rally scoring and minimizing the scoring. 2 out of 3 sets, you can be done in 20 or 30 minutes with that anyway. It's not a super long format. I just think minimizing draws. We're at a point now where pro seniors, there's so many pro seniors coming on to the tour where we have 20, 25, 30 teams in a bracket. I'm like, okay, so now we're there for 12, 14-hour days. I think minimizing the number of teams that get in the draw, have a qualifying, kind of like tennis does. I'd rather start seeing that rather than really shortening, which he already, coming from tennis background, it's already kind of a short format, because I think then you get more into chance and luck and, issues. Maybe you're right. Maybe it would be always the better teams and players would come in first, but with a short format. But I think more upsets would happen. The second thing is, from a rules perspective, I really don't like the questioning of the official of am I the correct server? Am I on the correct side? Asked like 3 or 4 questions, and I've said this to a number of referees, and they said, bring it on the docket for next year. I don't like winning points when people are serving from the wrong side, or I've talked to a lot of refs who don't like being a ref doing the gotcha moments. I just feel like a ref is there if they see you're on the wrong side. Hey, you're supposed to be on this side, not that side. I don't like that at all. And I haven't liked it since the day I started playing this game. And luckily, you could say 2 questions versus 1 question, but I think that's got to get more cohesive, where the ref is an ally there to just put, I mean, in tennis, you never have the person serving from the ad or the deuce on the wrong side. I just wish the ref could help assist with that rather than you have to ask the perfect question with the perfect alignment. I mean, I lost match against Weinbach and his partner in Chicago when we were side out. We called a timeout. We were on the wrong side. And we lost like 14-12 in the third. You know, 3 of those gotcha moments.